views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, coming up on this Christmas edition of Today's Verdict, with the holiday season in full force and effect, many of us now use the internet as our default when Christmas shopping. But online fraud is lurking, so we will have an expert on set to give all tips necessary to protect yourself. And keeping with this theme, as a consumer, your information is kept and sold to other companies for advertising purposes. But what if the information is not accurate? How does this affect your credit? And how do you clear up the mistake? And finally, we have a returning special guest who will give us an update on his quest to become a famous YouTuber. Who is this guest? Well, you'll have to stick around and find out. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. All right, hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict and check us out at bronxnet.tv. Holiday shopping can be fun, especially with all the special offers on the internet. But unfortunately, fraud is also out there, but don't worry, we have you covered. Here to give us some much needed holiday shopping tips is Commissioner of the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs, Lorelei Salas. Hi, Commissioner, thanks for being here.
Hi, David, thanks for having me.
I hope I'm not a little too late on my Christmas shopping, but let's say I'm ready to get going, or somebody watching is ready to start making a list. What would you say? How would you start somebody off?
Yes, I will start exactly there, right? Make a list. I make lists all the time, and I feel like that's the only way I can stick to something without like going overboard and buying things that I don't need.
A lot of the viewers in the Bronx and even throughout the city, they do live paycheck to paycheck. Is there a percentage, do you think, that people should think about in terms of, committing to a certain amount? How do you figure this out for yourself, really?
It's a very personal decision what you can afford to put aside for gifts, for additional like food and celebrations. But I'd say that an average American will spend close to $1,000 this Christmas.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for people who don't necessarily have it. All right, so now, you decide you know what you want, you have your list. Let's start online.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of problems are lurking online. Where do you see that most consumers have to watch out for in terms of the real dangers when they're doing the internet shopping?
So I would say a couple of things, right? Always go to reliable websites. And by that I mean, do your research, figure out which retailers you want to engage with. Do not answer to unsolicited emails. That's where we see a lot of the fraud happening. So you get an email that looks like it's coming from Macy's or Target telling you there's a special offer, click on this link. And consumers don't always read those emails carefully, and it's not coming from the official retailer. It's coming from some fake.
And what are they going to do? What are they doing with that information? I mean, because they're asking for a lot of personal information.
Exactly.
So what do they want from it? What are they looking to use it for? Are they using it to create other credit cards? Like, what do they do with it?
They might create other credit cards. They might simply try to steal your identity. But the moment you are putting your private information out there on the web, you have to know that it can get to the wrong hands, right?
All right. Let's talk about some things that people do buy, at least online, and it's something that it's very common, and we're talking about those gift cards. Everybody buys gift cards because it's easy, because you might not necessarily know what somebody wants for the holiday, but they'll take a gift card. But there are problems with gift cards.
Yes.
Tell me about what's going on.
Yeah, so I would say two things to be careful of. One, that sometimes those sites that are offering gift cards for sale, when you buy the gift card, there is no money attached to it, right? So you're buying an empty card. but what the business is trying to do is just get you to input your own credit card information.
It's once again getting your personal data.
Yes. But then if you do get a legitimate, gift card, understand that your card is available for up to 5 years. So there should be no expiration date that is less than 5 years.
Do they tell you this, or you should know this?
Well, that is the law, right?
That's
so,
the law, right,
so you should know that, and if that doesn't happen to you, make sure that you come to us. You can file a complaint with our office, and we'll investigate.
Right.
They also cannot charge you any inactivity fees or other fees if you've used the card within the last 25 months.
Right. Let's move for a second from the internet into the store. All right, so now you're in the store and you're walking around. I know sometimes there are posted prices for certain items, TVs or whatever, and then you get to the counter and it's a different price.
Right.
That's not legit.
Right. So whatever advertisement you've seen, right? So even before you come to the store, if you're getting those flyers or brochures that say, come in, we're going to sell you a TV for $1,000, and you get there, that item should be available to you for that price. That alone could be deceptive advertising if it's not made available to you.
Do you see that happen?
We see it happening.
You do?
Yeah, and then the stores, the retail to once in the store, all have older items priced. So you should be able to tell that the TV that you were looking at on the flyer is there at the store for that exact price.
Oh, this is what I always wondered. A lot of these stores sometimes say, well, we'll beat somebody's price. $500, we'll beat it. For $450, we'll let you have it. Do they have to do that? Is that deceptive advertising? Because that sometimes is a ruse to get people into the store, but the next thing you know, they're not beating the price, and with taxes and with another fees. I mean, have you seen that at all?
Well, I don't know that we've gotten a lot of those complaints, but if they say they will do it, they have to do it. And that also would be a violation of the law.
Many people purchase items on credit. Tell the viewers a little bit what that means and how they should protect themselves.
Yeah. So a couple of things there, right? If you already set up a budget, understand that if you're making your purchases by credit, obviously you're not sticking to that budget. There will be interest attached to those purchases, right? But there are many cases in which a store would offer you to buy an item with an installment credit process. So you really are, you gain the ability to pay for an item in parts, right, over a period of a few months. But then what happens is that usually carries with it fees and interest. So making sure that you understand what you're signing, reading the fine print, that is really key. A lot of the complaints that we get are from consumers who did not understand what they were signing.
Right, then months later, that's when they're getting the bill and and they're
Exactly.
paying off the television, or they're paying off
Yes.
something that's fairly expensive. I didn't realize it was going to be this much, and the interest is so high.
And even worse, sometimes in many cases what they're entering into is a lease agreement. So they never actually purchased the item, but they're just leasing it for a period of time.
All right, returns. This happens all the time. It's over. Unfortunately, Christmas is finished, and there's a flood back to the store. Everyone wants to return their items, and a lot of times the store will say, "No, we'll just give you credit." What's the law on that? Do you get your full money back? I never really understood that.
Right. So, and it's complicated. The stores actually can set their own policies. The law doesn't mandate them to have a particular policy in place. What they have to do is they have to inform the consumer what their policy is ahead of time. So before you pay for that item, you should see a sign that tells you we accept refunds within the next, within a week. We only offer credit.
So if you're buying, you're the person who should know this to make sure the person who gets the gift understands they can do it, because that person would know because they weren't there when they were buying it with the signs.
Exactly. So the obligation does have to have these signs posted so the consumer knows what they're getting themselves into. And if they don't have anything posted, then what the law says is that then in that case, the consumer has up to 30 days to bring the item back, a used item back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say they want to complain, and a consumer's not happy. How do they do that through your organization? Or
So they can call our office. They can file a complaint calling 311. What we tell consumers is really important that they maintain copies of the items, the receipts, right? Copies of the receipts, Because if we do not know how to contact that particular business, it's going to be very difficult.
And do you
for
end
us
up
to mediate.
contacting the businesses?
Yes. I mean, we mediate hundreds and hundreds of complaints
you
a
do.
year. We do. But again, we need to know who the business is, where they're located, their contact information, what you paid for,
Are
what's in
some
the
of these
receipt.
stores pop-up stores? You know, they're just around for a couple of weeks for the holidays so that you can't even find them when you need to find them?
Yes.
Do you find
yes,
that?
there are some. For
And
sure.
then so by the time you try and contact them, they may be in the wind, right?
yeah.
All right.
And-
Before we go, because this is really important, give us a couple of tips. There's somebody watching today, they've got their list, they're ready to go. What would you tell them to watch out for? You know, somebody who really wants to make sure they're
Yeah.
protecting themselves. What would you say?
So it's great. You already planned. You have your list. You know what your budget is. I'd say that the next two things to keep in mind is one, again, protecting your personal, private information is super important because you will still feel the pain of the money you've spent on the holidays. You don't want to also have being exposed your information to fraud, right? And I would say that also know what the consequences are of your purchases. So do understand what your policies are, what the rules are for refunding the items.
And you'll promise you'll come back here maybe during the year?
Anytime,
You
yes.
promise? Okay. All right, we have to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. All right, welcome back to Today's Verdict. I am your host, David Lesh. We are always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at Today's Verdict. Millions of consumers are impacted when background checks give false information. Your credit can be destroyed instantly, but you can fight back. Attorney Adam Singer is here to tell us how. Adam, how are you?
David, thank you for having me on. Nice to be here.
You know, I'm a little confused with this whole credit thing to begin with. There's two agencies. Do they share information? Why don't you just start us off? Tell us about these credit agencies that store your information. Who, what, where, please.
Sure. So most people are familiar with what are the three national credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. There are also a host of dozens of other what are called specialty consumer reporting agencies that focus on, say, housing, criminal employment background checks, even checking accounts.
The three big ones that you first mentioned, the ones where you say, oh, I got to check my credit report, and you look at those three, or TransUnion, whatever. Do they share information with each other? I know you check one. Does that mean it's on the other two? I never understood how that worked, to be quite honest with you.
In very limited circumstances, they will share information, in particular if there's a consumer reports fraud to one. But for the most part, they operate as independent databases of consumers' information.
Okay, and by the way, they're governed, or we're all governed by this Fair Credit Act or something to that respect. Am I correct?
Yes, there's a very important statute that Congress passed back in 1970 called the Fair Credit. There's also a parallel statute here in New York State called the New York FCRA.
Tell us about it.
Sure. So the hallmark of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and really what all of your viewers and every consumer should know, is that they're entitled to accuracy. In fact, what the statute says, and if there were three words I would want people to come away with, it would be that they're entitled to, quote, the maximum possible accuracy of the information that's reported about them by these different CRAs, consumer reporting agencies.
Who reports? I know you touched on there are so many different types of agencies, but who does most of the reporting that gets it onto the credit report? Credit card companies, I don't know, employers? Who gets the word out is what I want to know. Who's ratting you out is what I want to know.
Primarily creditors and then debt collectors. It's what the law calls furnishers because they're the ones who are furnishing the information to the credit bureaus.
Now, and just this is important because I think viewers don't understand this. Do you have to have a judgment against you to get onto this list, or is it just that somebody calls up a credit agency and says, by the way, Adam owes us money, so can you do me a favor, put it on this credit bureau report? Does it work that way?
So no, you do not need to have a judgment. In fact, interestingly, as of the past few years, the credit bureaus have stopped reporting public records like judgments and tax liens. So primarily what they're doing is they're reporting credit accounts or debt collection accounts related to credit accounts.
All right, let's talk errors, your specialty.
Yeah.
What is on there that typically is on there that shouldn't be on there? Where are the mistakes made?
Sure, and that is the focus of our practice. Primarily, the mistakes originate from one of two places. First, they could originate from the credit bureaus themselves. How would that happen? The credit bureaus might mix the file of one consumer with that of another consumer. Perhaps they have similar names, perhaps they live in a similar area. The credit bureaus are required to have reasonable procedures to make sure that doesn't happen, but it happens to millions of consumers.
When you figure this out, you're John Smith, and there are a million John Smiths, and now you can't get another credit card because John Smith owes $30,000. How do you even begin to unwind who the real John Smith is, or how do you begin to unwind it for the client or the consumer?
So in some cases, the consumer may benefit from disputing, sending a dispute letter directly to the credit bureaus first, but it's complex. Normally, we need to literally make a federal case out of it and file a lawsuit against the offending credit bureaus and the creditors who were possibly reporting this information and have not fixed it.
Is this in New York or in federal or both?
This is in federal court.
So this happens in federal court?
Correct.
All right. So now, unfortunately, you're one of those people that has a poor credit and you can't get future credit. Who is really going to be the most responsible in terms of your own damages? The initial debtor, the credit bureau? Where do you seek the damages from? Or is it multiple places, to be honest with you?
It's multiple places. So both the credit bureaus have an obligation from the outset, even before a dispute is sent, to make sure that this doesn't happen, to assure that maximum possible accuracy. But if the consumers dispute, the credit bureaus will send that information to the creditors who are reporting, and the creditors also have an obligation, like the credit bureaus, to investigate and to do a real investigation. The problem is the system is broken.
How so?
What happens is that the credit bureaus often reduce what could be a complex and detailed dispute down to a couple of codes. It's often sent then to the furnishers, the creditors in that form, and the creditors often do a very cursory, shallow investigation.
Can you give me an example of maybe somebody who's had an issue with some kind of credit and the lengths that you have to, the hoops you have to jump through to try and fix it?
Sure, I'll give you a great example. We've had a few clients where they've had accounts or mistakes that have been reporting. They've contacted the creditor, and the creditor has agreed with them that there's a mistake and even sent them a letter on their own letterhead, but they still don't fix it. Our clients will then dispute with the credit bureaus as required by law, and the credit bureaus will send that dispute to the creditor. Exhibit A, right, the first document will be the creditor's own letter saying this is right, and they still won't fix it, right? You're dealing with massive corporations. One side doesn't know what the other is doing.
That's horrible. All right, tips. It's holiday shopping time. The commissioner was the guest before you. What would you say to somebody who is ready to shop, doing some shopping, credit? Well, I don't know. Give some tips to some of these people out there, but it's a very trying time.
It really is. The most important thing that each consumer can do is to monitor their credit. They should do it on a regular basis.
Where? How?
So the most important website to know is annualcreditreport.com. That is the website that's free. It's authorized by the statute, and consumers can check each of their Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion credit reports once per year for free. What folks recommend as a way to monitor it on a more ongoing basis is to check one of the bureaus every 4 months. In addition, they can also sign up for websites like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, which may not be precise reflections of what's reporting on the credit bureaus, but it will give consumers a general idea, and it will alert them to the most important issue, which is if there's an account on their credit reports that does not belong to them. they should know about it and they should take action as quickly as possible.
And lastly, and most importantly, where do we find you?
Consumers can find us on the web at nyconsumerlaw.com. They can also reach me by telephone at 212-842-2428. If anyone has accounts on their reports that don't belong to them, we would very much like to work with them.
And you're going to come back, right?
We'd look forward to
All
it.
right. It was great having you.
Thank you.
We have to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be back shortly with a very special guest. All right, welcome back to Today's Verdict. Make sure to stay connected and tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Today's Verdict if you have any questions. Making his third appearance on our show is a very special young man who is working hard not only in school, but in his quest to become a famous YouTuber. Who is this young man? It's the one and only Brody Lesh. Brody, thanks for coming back. Brody, let's talk a little bit about some games that you've been playing. It's been a couple of years. What's on the agenda? What do you like playing?
Minecraft.
Minecraft? What is Minecraft?
It's a game.
And what do you do with Minecraft?
Anything.
Can you build stuff or no?
Yes.
How about some of the shooter games? Any of that type of stuff? You playing that or not really?
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. And how about what's that other game where you shoot down and oh, I forgot. It's the one where there's only one person left at the very end. Oh, anybody know what the name of that game is? Fortnite.
I don't
Thank you.
play it anymore.
Oh, you don't play Fortnite anymore? All right, I'm checking with that. All right. You have a YouTube channel, and I know you want some more followers. What do you...
You mean subscribers.
Subscribers, that's right, subscribers. What kind of, I don't know, what type of videos do you put on there usually?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember.
No, you don't know? Have you put anything on there in the past?
Yeah,
Like what?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? All right, well, give me some names of some of the famous YouTubers that you know.
The Odd Ones Out, PewDiePie, Smosh. Let me think. Bruce Do Films.
And who's your favorite?
Maybe Bruce Do Films.
Bristol Films? Right. So now let's say there's somebody watching right now, another 9-year-old who wants to start, playing some video games. What would you recommend? What would you tell him or her to do?
Minecraft.
Minecraft? But aren't there different versions of Minecraft?
Only survival and creative, and they're in the exact same app.
They're the same app? Which one do you like better?
Survival.
All right, let's focus for a second because I know you've been working so hard in school. Some of the stuff you've been doing, tell me some of the specials.
Reading, writing, math, and global studies.
And which you like the best?
Probably math.
Math? And how about PE?
Yeah.
You ready for a shout out? Who are you going to give it to?
My PE teacher, Mr. Pukel,
Why?
because he watches BronxNet.
He watches BronxNet and he likes it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know you've been a good boy. You've been working really hard. Any particular thing you want for the holidays? Any presents?
A Chromebook.
A Chromebook.
And a Nintendo Switch Lite.
That's not bad. All right. And you'll come back here maybe in a couple of years, see how you're doing, and you'll let us know how your YouTube channel is, right?
Okay.
All right. Give me a high five. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you miss any part of today's show, be sure to check us out at www.bronxnet.tv. And also remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag AskTodayVerdict. From myself and all of us at the staff, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. Have a very happy holiday. We'll see you next time.